First contact. The summer sun beat down on the dusty streets of Millbrook, a small town nestled in the heart of the American Midwest. Sarah Chen, a 32-year-old veterinarian, wiped the sweat from her brow as she locked up her clinic for the day. Her loyal companion, Max, a 5-year-old Australian Shepherd mix, waited patiently by her side, his tail wagging in anticipation of their evening walk. "Ready to go, buddy?" Sarah asked, smiling down at Max. The dog's mismatched eyes, one blue, one brown, sparkled with excitement as he let out a soft woof in response. As they set off down the quiet street, neither Sarah nor Max could have imagined that this ordinary Tuesday evening would mark the beginning of an extraordinary adventure, one that would change not only their lives but the course of human history. The first sign that something was amiss came as they rounded the corner into Millbrook's Central Park. A group of people had gathered, their faces turned skyward, pointing and murmuring in confusion. Sarah followed their gaze, her breath catching in her throat as she saw what had captured their attention. Hovering silently above the town was an enormous object, its metallic surface gleaming in the fading sunlight. It was unlike anything Sarah had ever seen, not quite a traditional flying saucer, but unmistakably not of Earth origin. Its shape was fluid, almost organic, with curves and protrusions that seemed to defy the laws of physics. Max growled softly, the fur on his back standing on end. Sarah placed a reassuring hand on his head, though her own heart was racing. "It's okay, boy," she whispered, more to herself than to the dog. As the townspeople watched in a mixture of awe and fear, a beam of shimmering light suddenly extended from the craft, touching down in the center of the park. Within seconds, figures began to materialize within the beam. Tall, slender beings with iridescent skin and large almond-shaped eyes. Panic erupted among the onlookers. People began to run, screaming and shouting warnings to others. But Sarah remained rooted to the spot, her scientific curiosity overriding her fear. Max stayed by her side, his posture tense but steady. The aliens, for there was no doubt that's what they were, stepped out of the beam of light. There were 5 of them, each standing at least 7 feet tall. Their movements were graceful, almost liquid, as they surveyed their surroundings with obvious interest. One of the beings, slightly taller than the others, and with a shimmer of gold in its skin, stepped forward. It opened its mouth, and to Sarah's amazement, words in perfect English emerged. "People of Earth," the alien said, its voice resonating with an otherworldly timbre, "we come in peace. We are the Zarkai, travelers from a distant star system. We seek to establish contact and exchange knowledge with your species." The remaining townspeople, including Sarah, stood in stunned silence. Max, however, had other ideas. Perhaps sensing his human's unease, or driven by his own protective instincts, the dog suddenly darted forward, placing himself between Sarah and the aliens. Max's bark echoed through the park, causing the Zarkade to take a step back in surprise. The lead alien tilted its head, studying Max with obvious fascination. "Fascinating," it said. "Is this creature your protector?" Sarah, snapping out of her shock, quickly moved to Max's side. "I'm so sorry," she said, addressing the alien directly. "He's not usually like this. He's just protective." The alien's large eyes blinked slowly. "There is no need for apology. We are intrigued by this being. In all our travels, we have never encountered a species quite like it." As Sarah struggled to process the surreal situation, sirens began to wail in the distance. The sound of approaching vehicles filled the air, and within moments, a fleet of black SUVs and military trucks came screeching into the park. Soldiers poured out of the vehicles, their weapons trained on the Zarkai. A man in a crisp suit stepped forward, his face a mask of stern authority. "I am Agent Daniel Foster, United States Government," he announced. "You are in restricted airspace and have made unauthorized contact with U.S. citizens. We demand that you return to your craft immediately." Max, who had been watching the exchange intently, suddenly let out another bark. This time, it wasn't aggressive, but almost playful. To everyone's amazement, he trotted over to the lead Zarkai, tail wagging, and sat down in front of it. The alien, after a moment's hesitation, slowly extended a long-fingered hand towards Max. The dog sniffed it curiously, then, to Sarah's astonishment, gave it a friendly lick. A ripple of surprise passed through both the humans and the Zarkai. The lead alien's eyes widened, and a sound that could only be described as laughter emerged from its mouth. "Extraordinary," it said, gently patting Max's head. "This being possesses no fear, only curiosity and affection. Is this common among your Earth creatures?" Sarah, seeing an opportunity to diffuse the tension, stepped forward again. "Dogs, that's what we call Max's species, are known for their loyalty and ability to sense people's intentions. If Max trusts you, that's a good sign." Agent Foster, looking increasingly frustrated, opened his mouth to object, but was cut off by a new voice. "Stand down, Foster." All eyes turned to see a woman in her mid-60s striding purposefully across the park. Her salt and pepper hair was pulled back in a tight bun, and her posture radiated authority. "Madam President," Foster stammered, clearly caught off guard. The President of the United States surveyed the scene, her sharp eyes taking in every detail. She nodded to the soldiers, who lowered their weapons, then turned to the Zarkai. "I apologize for the less than warm welcome," she said, her voice firm but not unkind. "As I'm sure you can understand, your arrival has caught us somewhat by surprise." The lead Zarkai inclined its head respectfully. "We understand, and we thank you for your willingness to speak with us." The President then turned to Sarah, a hint of a smile on her face. "Dr. Chen, I believe. It seems your four-legged friend here has a talent for interstellar diplomacy." Sarah, feeling slightly overwhelmed, could only nod in response. "Well then," the President continued, "perhaps you and Max would be willing to assist us in our discussions with our new guests." As the sun set over Millbrook, casting long shadows across the park, Sarah found herself in a situation she could never have imagined when she woke up that morning. Standing between the leaders of Earth and an advanced alien civilization, with her loyal dog by her side, she realized that the world as she knew it had changed forever. And as the Zarkai began to share their story, of their long journey across the stars, of the wonders and dangers they had encountered, and of the reason for their arrival on Earth, Sarah knew that this was only the beginning of an adventure beyond her wildest dreams. Little did any of them know that Max, the ordinary dog from small-town America, would soon play a crucial role in shaping the future of both their species. The crisis unfolds. In the weeks following the Zarkai's arrival, the world teetered on the brink of chaos. News of the alien presence spread like wildfire, igniting a spectrum of reactions across the globe. Some welcomed the visitors with open arms, seeing their arrival as the dawn of a new era for humanity. Others reacted with fear and suspicion, convinced that the aliens harbored sinister intentions. Sarah Chen found herself at the epicenter of this global upheaval. Her unexpected role in the first contact had thrust her into the spotlight, transforming her from a small-town veterinarian into a key figure in human-Zarkai relations. Max, too, had become something of a celebrity, his friendly interaction with the aliens held up as a symbol of hope and trust. On a crisp autumn morning, Sarah sat in a high-security conference room deep within the Pentagon. Max lay at her feet, seemingly oblivious to the weight of the situation. Across the table sat Zalfar, the lead Zarkai who had first spoken to humanity in Millbrook Park. Flanking him were two other aliens, their iridescent skin shimmering under the harsh fluorescent lights. Dr. Chen, General Laura Hawkins, the newly appointed head of extraterrestrial affairs, began. "The Zarkai have requested your presence for this meeting. They say they have concerning information to share." Sarah nodded, trying to keep her expression neutral despite the knot of anxiety forming in her stomach. Over the past weeks, she had come to respect, and even like the Zarkai, particularly Zalfar. But there was still so much about them that remained a mystery. Zalfar's large, opalescent eyes fixed on Sarah. "Sarah Chen," he said, his melodious voice tinged with what she had come to recognize as worry. "We have not been entirely forthcoming about the reason for our journey to Earth." A ripple of tension passed through the human officials in the room. General Hawkins leaned forward, her eyes narrowing. "What exactly do you mean by that?" Zalfar's skin rippled, a sign of distress Sarah had observed before. "We came to your world not merely out of curiosity or a desire for peaceful exchange, but out of desperate need. Our homeworld, Zarkai Prime, faces an existential threat, one that we fear may soon endanger Earth as well." Sarah felt her breath catch in her throat. At her feet, Max whined softly, sensing the shift in mood. "What kind of threat?" Sarah asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Zalfar waved a long-fingered hand, and a holographic image appeared above the conference table. It showed a swirling mass of darkness, shot through with veins of sickly green light. "We call it the Void," Zalfar explained. "It is a cosmic anomaly, a tear in the fabric of space-time that consumes everything in its path. It appeared on the edges of our star system a decade ago, and despite all our advanced technology, we have been powerless to stop its advance." The room fell silent as the implications of this revelation sank in. It was General Hawkins who finally spoke, her voice tight with controlled fear. "And you believe this? Void is headed towards Earth." Zalfar nodded solemnly. "Based on our calculations, it will reach your solar system within 5 of your Earth years. We came here hoping to find a solution, to combine our knowledge with yours in a last-ditch effort to save both our worlds." Chaos erupted in the conference room. Officials argued loudly, some accusing the Zarkay of bringing this threat to Earth, others demanding immediate action. Sarah sat in stunned silence, her mind reeling from the magnitude of the crisis. Suddenly, a sharp bark cut through the noise. All eyes turned to Max, who had risen to his feet and was looking intently at Zalfar. The alien met the dog's mismatched gaze, a look of curiosity crossing his features. "Your companion seems to sense our distress," Zalfar observed. "It is remarkable how attuned he is to the emotions around him." Sarah placed a hand on Max's head, drawing comfort from his solid presence. "Max has always been good at reading situations," she said. "It's part of what makes dogs such wonderful companions." An idea began to form in Sarah's mind. It was wild, perhaps even ridiculous, but in the face of such an overwhelming threat, no possibility could be ignored. "Zalfar," she said, her voice gaining strength, "you've mentioned before how fascinated you are by Earth's animals, particularly dogs. Is there nothing like them on your world?" The alien shook his head. "We have no creatures that compare to your canines. Their combination of intelligence, empathy, and loyalty is unique in our experience." Sarah leaned forward, her eyes shining with a mix of desperation and hope. What if that uniqueness could somehow help us against the Void?" The room fell silent once more, all eyes now on Sarah. She took a deep breath and continued. "You said your technology couldn't stop the Void. But maybe what we need isn't more advanced technology. Maybe we need something the Void has never encountered before. Something unpredictable, instinctual, alive." General Hawkins frowned. "Dr. Chen, are you suggesting we try to stop a cosmic anomaly with dogs?" Put that way, it did sound absurd. But Sarah pressed on. "Not exactly. But think about it. Dogs have abilities we're only beginning to understand. They can detect diseases, predict seizures, sense emotions. Who's to say they couldn't sense something about the Void that our instruments can't pick up?" Zalfar tilted his head, considering. "It is an unconventional idea. But in the face of extinction, we cannot afford to dismiss any possibility, no matter how unlikely it may seem." As the discussion continued, debating the merits and logistics of Sarah's wild proposal, alarms suddenly blared throughout the building. Red lights flashed, and a voice came over the intercom. "Security breach in Sector 7. Unknown entity detected. "This is not a drill." Repeat, "This is not a drill." Panic ensued as officials rushed to secure classified information and evacuate the room. But amidst the chaos, Sarah noticed something strange. Max was not barking or showing signs of distress as he usually would in such a situation. Instead, he was perfectly calm, his eyes fixed on a point in the corner of the room. Sarah followed his gaze and gasped. A small patch of air seemed to be rippling, like the surface of a pond disturbed by a thrown stone. As she watched, the ripple grew, expanding into a swirling vortex of darkness, threaded with sickly green light. "The void," Zalfar whispered, his voice filled with horror. "It's here." Tendrils of darkness began to seep from the vortex, reaching out towards the room's occupants. Officials scrambled to get away, but the tendrils moved with terrifying speed. Sarah found herself frozen in place, watching as one of the dark appendages stretched towards her. But before it could reach her, Max sprang into action. The dog leaped forward, placing himself between Sarah and the tendril. To everyone's amazement, as Max's bark rang out, the tendril recoiled as if in pain. The void's advance halted. The tendrils wavered, seeming almost confused. Max continued to bark, the sound reverberating through the room with an almost physical force. And slowly, incredibly, the vortex began to shrink. Zalfar's eyes widened in disbelief. "Impossible," he breathed. "Nothing has ever repelled the void before." As suddenly as it had appeared, the vortex winked out of existence, leaving behind only a faint smell of ozone and a room full of stunned humans and aliens. In the ringing silence that followed, Sarah knelt beside Max, hugging him tightly. "Good boy," she whispered, her voice shaking. "Good boy." General Hawkins was the first to recover her composure. "Dr. Chen," she said, her voice filled with a new respect, "I believe your proposal just got a lot more credible." Zalfar nodded, his gaze moving from Max to Sarah. "Indeed, it seems your companion has given us something we had almost lost: hope." As the implications of what had just occurred began to sink in, Sarah realized that her life, and possibly the fate of 2 worlds, had just changed irrevocably. The crisis was far from over. In fact, it had only just begun. But for the first time since learning of the void's existence, she felt a glimmer of optimism. Looking down at Max, his tail wagging as if he hadn't just faced down a cosmic horror, Sarah couldn't help but smile. Humanity's best hope against an incomprehensible threat might just lie in the paws of its most faithful companions. The road ahead would be long and fraught with challenges, but with Max by her side, and the combined determination of humans and Zar-Kai, Sarah was ready to face whatever the universe might throw at them. The battle for Earth, and for the very nature of reality itself, was about to begin. Unlikely alliance. The revelation of Max's ability to repel the void sparked a frenzy of activity. Within days, a top-secret facility dubbed Operation Canine Shield was established in a remote area of the Rocky Mountains. Sarah found herself at the heart of this unprecedented initiative, working alongside a diverse team of human scientists, Zar-Kai researchers, and a growing contingent of specially selected dogs. The facility was a marvel of human and alien engineering, its gleaming laboratories and training areas designed to accommodate both species. In the central atrium, a massive holographic display showed the void's relentless advance across the galaxy, a constant reminder of the stakes they faced. Sarah stood before this display, Max sitting alertly by her side as she addressed the assembled team. "We have less than 5 years to find a way to stop the void," she began, her voice steady despite the weight of responsibility she felt. "Thanks to Max, we know it's possible. Now we need to figure out how to replicate and amplify that effect." Zalfar, who had become a permanent fixture at the facility, stepped forward. "We have analyzed the energy readings from the Pentagon incident," he said, his melodious voice tinged with excitement. "There appears to be a unique frequency generated when your canines bark that disrupts the void's quantum structure." Dr. Aisha Patel, A brilliant quantum physicist who had been recruited for the project nodded in agreement. "We're calling it the bark resonance," she added. "It's unlike anything we've ever encountered in physics. Somehow, the dogs are tapping into a fundamental force of the universe that we never knew existed." As the briefing continued, detailing the various experiments and training protocols they would be implementing, Sarah couldn't help but feel a sense of surreal wonder. Just months ago, she had been a small-town vet. Now she was leading humanity's last hope against a cosmic threat. The days that followed were a blur of activity. Sarah split her time between working with the dogs, collaborating with the scientists on their experiments, and trying to understand the void itself. The Zarkai shared everything they knew about the anomaly, but there was still so much mystery surrounding its nature and origin. One evening, as Sarah was reviewing data in her lab, she heard a soft whine. Looking down, she saw Max pawing at her leg, his eyes conveying a clear message. It was time for a break. Smiling, Sarah stood and stretched. "You're right, buddy. Let's get some fresh air." As they walked through the facility's secured outdoor area, Sarah's mind wandered to the progress they'd made. They had successfully trained several dogs to produce the bark resonance on command, and early tests showed promising results in disrupting small void manifestations. But scaling up to a cosmic level still seemed like an insurmountable challenge. Lost in thought, Sarah almost didn't notice when Max suddenly stopped, his ears perked and body tense. Following his gaze, Sarah gasped. At the edge of the clearing, partially hidden by shadows, stood a deer. But this was unlike any deer she had ever seen. Its body seemed to shimmer and shift, as if it wasn't fully present in this reality. Before Sarah could react, Max let out a sharp bark. The sound reverberated through the air, and to Sarah's amazement, the deer-like creature briefly flickered, revealing a swirling mass of void-like energy beneath its illusory form. Then, with a sound like reality tearing, it vanished. "Zalfar," Sarah called out, her heart racing. "We need to talk. Now." Hours later, Sarah stood before the project leaders, her face grim. "The void isn't just a cosmic anomaly," she explained. "It's alive, or at least, it contains life. Those creatures Max and I saw, they're some kind of scouts or advance guard." The revelation sent shockwaves through the team. If the void was a deliberate invasion, rather than a mindless force of nature, it changed everything. Zalfar's skin rippled with distress. "This complicates matters," he said. "Our weapons and shields were designed to combat an anomaly, not an invading force." General Hawkins, who had been overseeing the military aspects of the operation, leaned forward. "Then we adapt," she said firmly. "If this is an invasion, we treat it like one. We need to combine our defensive strategies with offensive capabilities." As the implications of this new information sank in, a heated debate erupted among the team. Some argued for doubling down on the bark resonance research, while others pushed for developing more traditional weapons. In the midst of the arguing, Sarah felt a gentle nudge against her leg. Looking down, she saw Max gazing up at her, his mismatched eyes seeming to hold a wisdom beyond his years. And suddenly, she had an idea. "Wait," Sarah called out, silencing the room. "We've been thinking about this all wrong. We've been trying to turn the dogs into weapons, to amplify their bark into some kind of sonic cannon. But that's not what Max did in the Pentagon. He didn't just bark. He confronted the void. He stood his ground." She knelt down, running her hand through Max's fur. "Dogs aren't just their bark. They're loyal, protective, empathetic. What if those qualities are just as important in fighting the void as the bark resonance?" Dr. Patil frowned. "Are you suggesting we, what, train the dogs to emotionally confront the void?" Sarah nodded, her excitement growing. "Exactly. The void creatures can create illusions, right? They're trying to deceive us, to play on our fears. But dogs can see through deception. They sense intentions, emotions. What if we train them not just to bark, but to truly confront these entities on a deeper level?" Zalfar's eyes widened. A multi-dimensional approach, he mused, combining the physical disruption of the bark resonance with a kind of psychic confrontation. It's unprecedented, but then again, so is our enemy. General Hawkins nodded slowly. It's worth exploring. But how do we implement something like this on a global scale? We can't exactly give every person on Earth a specially trained dog. Maybe we don't have to, Sarah replied. What if we could find a way to broadcast the combined effect? Like a psychic radar, powered by the dogs but amplified to cover the planet. The room fell silent as the implications of this idea sank in. It was audacious, perhaps even impossible. But in the face of humanity's extinction, the impossible had become their only option. All right, Dr. Chen, General Hawkins said finally. You have your green light, but we're on a tight timeline. We need results, and we need them fast. As the meeting adjourned and plans were set in motion to implement Sarah's new approach, she couldn't help but feel a mix of hope and trepidation. They were venturing into unknown territory, combining cutting-edge science with something far more intangible. The unique bond between humans and their canine companions. Over the next few months, the facility transformed. New training programs were developed, combining traditional obedience work with exercises designed to enhance the dog's empathic abilities. The Zarkai, fascinated by the concept, threw themselves into the research, their advanced technology merging with human ingenuity in ways neither species had imagined possible. Sarah worked tirelessly, overseeing the training, collaborating on the development of the psychic radar technology, and continuing to study the nature of the void and its creatures. Max remained by her side through it all, seeming to understand the gravity of their mission. As their work progressed, small victories began to accumulate. They successfully repelled several more void incursions, each time learning more about their enemy. The dogs, led by Max, showed an uncanny ability to detect the void creatures even when they were disguised, their barks now carrying not just the resonance, but a palpable sense of protective determination. But for every step forward, there were setbacks. The technology to broadcast the dog's effect globally proved incredibly complex, and early tests resulted in failures that left the team discouraged. The void's advances continued, with reports of strange phenomena and missing persons increasing worldwide. One night, after a particularly grueling day of failed experiments, Sarah sat alone in her lab, the weight of their mission heavy on her shoulders. Max, sensing her distress, placed his head on her lap, looking up at her with those soulful, mismatched eyes. "What if we can't do it, Max?" Sarah whispered, voicing her deepest fear for the first time. "What if we fail?" Max's response was to nuzzle her hand, his warmth and unwavering loyalty a silent reminder of why they were fighting. And in that moment, Sarah felt a renewed surge of determination. They couldn't fail. The bond she felt with Max, the trust and love between humans and dogs that had evolved over thousands of years, that was what they were fighting for. Not just survival, but the preservation of a connection that represented the best of humanity. With renewed energy, Sarah turned back to her work. As she pored over the data, a new pattern began to emerge. Something they had overlooked, a connection between the dog's emotional state and the strength of the bark resonance. Excitement building, Sarah called for an emergency meeting. As she explained her discovery to the team, she could see the spark of hope rekindling in their eyes. "This could be it," Dr. Paddle said, her voice filled with cautious optimism. "The missing piece we've been looking for." Zalfar nodded in agreement. "We stand on the brink of a breakthrough," he intoned. "One that could save not just our worlds, but perhaps the entire galaxy." As the team dispersed, energized and ready to implement this new finding, Sarah felt a profound sense of purpose. They still had a long way to go, and the void's advance showed no signs of slowing. But for the first time, she truly believed they had a chance. Looking down at Max, who sat alert and ready by her side, Sarah smiled. "Well, boy," she said, "ready to save the world?" Max's enthusiastic bark echoed through the facility, a sound of hope and defiance against the encroaching darkness. The battle was far from over, but with the combined strength of two species and the unwavering loyalty of humanity's oldest companions, they were ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. As they stepped out into the cool mountain air, the star-filled sky above them, Sarah felt a sense of awe at the journey that had brought them to this point. An unlikely alliance of humans, aliens, and dogs, standing together against a cosmic threat. Whatever the outcome, she knew that this union represented something profound, a testament to the power of connection, compassion, and courage in the face of the unknown. The ultimate test. The day of reckoning arrived sooner than anyone had anticipated. It began with a series of anomalies detected across the globe. Strange weather patterns, unexplained power outages, and reports of bizarre creature sightings flooding in from every continent. The void was making its move, and humanity's time had run out. At the Operation Canine Shield facility, alarms blared as the team scrambled to implement their plan. Sarah stood in the control room, surrounded by banks of monitors displaying the chaos unfolding around the world. Max sat alertly by her side, his presence a calming influence amidst the frantic activity. Status report. General Hawkins barked, striding into the room with Zalthar close behind. Dr. Patel's fingers flew over her keyboard as she pulled up a holographic display of the Earth. Multiple void incursions detected, she reported, her voice tense. The largest concentration appears to be converging on these coordinates. A red dot pulsed ominously over the heart of North America. Sarah's breath caught in her throat. That's directly over us, she realized. They know what we're trying to do. They're coming to stop us. Zalthar's skin rippled with concern. We must act quickly, he said. If we cannot activate the global psychic radar before the void overwhelms us, all will be lost. General Hawkins nodded grimly. Initiate Operation Howl, she ordered. And may whatever gods are out there be with us. The plan they had developed over the past months was audacious and untested. Using a network of satellites and ground-based transmitters, they would attempt to broadcast the combined bark resonance and empathic energy of the specially trained dogs across the entire planet. If successful, it would create a protective shield capable of repelling the void and its creatures. But the scale of the operation was unprecedented. They had never attempted to channel the energy of so many dogs simultaneously, nor to project it over such a vast distance. The potential for failure, or worse, for something to go catastrophically wrong, was enormous. As the team rushed to make final preparations, Sarah knelt beside Max, looking into his mismatched eyes. "You ready for this, boy?" she asked softly. Max's tail wagged once, his gaze steady and unwavering. Sarah smiled, drawing strength from his quiet confidence. "Yeah, me too." Across the facility, dozens of dogs were being led to specially designed chambers. Each one had been carefully selected and trained for this moment, representing a diverse array of breeds united in their unwavering loyalty and courage. Sarah took her position at the central control panel, Max sitting alertly beside her. Dr. Patel and a team of Zarkai scientists manned the surrounding stations, their fingers poised over complex arrays of controls. "Commencing startup sequence," Dr. Patel announced, her voice steady despite the tension visible in her face. "Powering up transmitters." A low hum filled the air as the massive machinery came to life. Outside, the array of satellite dishes began to move, aligning themselves with pinpoint precision. "Energy levels rising," one of the Zarkai reported, "approaching critical threshold." Sarah took a deep breath, placing her hand on the main activation switch. This was it, the moment of truth. Everything they had worked for came down to this. Initiating bark resonance in 3, 2, 1. Sarah flipped the switch. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, a sound unlike anything she had ever heard before filled the air. It was a chorus of barks, but amplified and transformed into something almost musical, a harmony that seemed to resonate with the very fabric of reality. The effect was immediate and startling. The air around them began to shimmer, waves of energy radiating outward from the facility. On the monitors, they could see the effect spreading across the globe, a wave of golden light pushing back against the encroaching darkness of the void. For a moment, hope surged through Sarah's heart. It was working. They were actually doing it. But then, everything went wrong. The floor beneath them shuddered violently. Alarms blared as cracks appeared in the walls, dark tendrils of void energy seeping through. "We've got a breach," General Hawkins shouted over the cacophony. "The void is trying to disrupt the transmission at the source." Sarah's mind raced. They had anticipated this possibility, but not on this scale. The void was throwing everything it had at them, determined to snuff out this last, desperate attempt at resistance. As chaos erupted around them, Sarah felt a sudden, inexplicable calm. She looked down at Max, who gazed back at her with unwavering trust. In that moment, she knew what they had to do. "Keep the transmission going no matter what," Sarah ordered, her voice cutting through the panic. "Max and I are going to buy you some time." Before anyone could protest, Sarah was moving, Max at her heels. They raced through the corridors of the facility, dodging falling debris and lashing tendrils of void energy. Finally, they burst out into the open air. The scene that greeted them was like something out of a nightmare. The sky had turned a sickly green, roiling with clouds of void energy. And descending from those clouds were creatures beyond description, writhing masses of darkness with too many limbs and glowing, malevolent eyes. But Sarah didn't falter. With Max by her side, she strode forward to meet this impossible threat. "Okay, boy," she said, her voice steady despite the fear threatening to overwhelm her. "Remember your training. Focus on the connection between us. Feel the love, the trust, the bond we share. And then, let them have it." Max's bark rang out, clear and defiant against the otherworldly sounds of the void creatures. But this was no ordinary bark. Infused with the resonance and amplified by the emotional connection between dog and human, it struck the approaching entities like a physical force. The nearest creature recoiled, its form rippling as if in pain. Encouraged, Sarah and Max pressed forward. With each step, Max's barks grew stronger, more focused. The air around them began to glow with a warm, golden light, the manifestation of the bond between human and canine, a force that the void, for all its cosmic power, could not comprehend or overcome. Back in the control room, the team watched in awe as Sarah and Max single-handedly held back the void assault. Their actions were having a ripple effect, strengthening the global transmission and inspiring the other dogs to redouble their efforts. "It's working," Dr. Paddle exclaimed, her eyes wide as she studied the readouts. "The void is retreating on all fronts." Zalthar, his alien features set in an expression of wonder, shook his head in disbelief. "In all our travels, in all our scientific advancements, we never imagined that the key to defeating the void would be something as simple and profound as the bond between your species and these remarkable animals." Outside, Sarah and Max continued their stand. With each passing moment, the void's assault weakened. The creatures that had seemed so terrifying began to dissolve, unable to maintain their form in the face of the overwhelming force of loyalty, love, and determination emanating from the unlikely pair. As the last of the void entities retreated, the sickly green sky began to clear. Rays of sunlight broke through, bathing Sarah and Max in warm, natural light. They had done it. Against all odds, they had turned the tide. Exhausted but triumphant, Sarah knelt beside Max, burying her face in his fur. "Good boy," she whispered, her voice choked with emotion. "The best boy." In the days that followed, reports came in from around the world. The void had been repelled, driven back across the cosmos by the unprecedented global defense. Humanity had faced its greatest challenge, and with the help of their most loyal companions, had emerged victorious. The implications of what had occurred were staggering. The bark resonance technology, combined with the newly discovered power of the human-canine bond, had opened up new frontiers in science and spirituality alike. The Zarkai, their own world now safe from the Void's advance, pledged to stand by humanity as allies and friends, eager to learn more about the species that had accomplished what their advanced technology could not. As for Sarah and Max, they found themselves hailed as heroes. But as she stood before cheering crowds and flashing cameras, Sarah's thoughts were not on fame or recognition. She was thinking of quiet evenings in a small-town veterinary clinic, of long walks in the park, of the simple, profound joy of a wagging tail and a cold nose pressed against her hand. In the end, it wasn't advanced alien technology or complex scientific theories that had saved the world. It was something far simpler and far more powerful: the love between a human and her dog, a bond that had proven strong enough to hold back the darkness and usher in a new era of hope for all of Earth's inhabitants. As Sarah looked down at Max, his mismatched eyes gazing up at her with unchanging devotion, she smiled. Whatever challenges the future might hold, whatever new wonders or dangers the universe might reveal, she knew that as long as they had each other, there was nothing they couldn't face. The Void had come, threatening to consume all of reality. But it had not accounted for the indomitable spirit of humanity, nor the unwavering loyalty of humanity's best friends. In the cosmic tale of survival, it turned out that man's best friend was the universe's best hope. A new understanding. In the months following humanity's victory over the Void, the world underwent a profound transformation. The knowledge that we were not alone in the universe, combined with the revelation of the power inherent in the bond between humans and dogs, sparked a global paradigm shift. Sarah Chen found herself at the center of this new world order, though not entirely by choice. As she stood on the stage of a grand auditorium in New York City, preparing to address a mixed audience of humans and Zarkai, she couldn't help but feel a twinge of nostalgia for her old life. Max, ever present by her side, sensed her unease and pressed his nose against her hand. Sarah smiled down at him, drawing strength from his unwavering support. "Thanks, buddy," she whispered. "Let's do this." Clearing her throat, Sarah began her speech. "Distinguished guests, fellow Earthlings, and our friends from the stars, thank you for being here today. A year ago, if someone had told me that I'd be standing here, talking about how my dog helped save the universe, I'd have thought they were crazy. But here we are, living in a reality stranger and more wonderful than we ever could have imagined." As Sarah spoke, holographic images appeared behind her, showcasing the incredible advancements that had been made since the Void's defeat. New technologies born from the merger of human ingenuity, Zarkai knowledge, and the study of the bark resonance were revolutionizing everything from medicine to space travel. But perhaps the most profound change, Sarah continued, has been in how we view our relationship with the animals we share this planet with, particularly our canine companions. The hologram shifted to show scenes of the new interspecies communication centers that had sprung up around the globe. In these facilities, humans and dogs work together in ways never before thought possible, their enhanced connection allowing for unprecedented levels of cooperation and understanding. "We've always known that dogs were special," Sarah said, her voice filled with emotion. "But now we understand just how extraordinary they truly are. The bond we share with them isn't just emotional. It's a fundamental force of the universe, as real and powerful as gravity or electromagnetism." As she spoke, Sarah could feel the weight of Max's gaze upon her. She turned to look at him, and for a moment, the rest of the world fell away. In his mismatched eyes, she saw not just love and loyalty, but a depth of understanding that still amazed her. Since the activation of the global psychic radar, the connection between humans and dogs had deepened in ways that were still being explored and understood. Turning back to the audience, Sarah continued, "This discovery has opened up new avenues of research and exploration. We're finding that the empathic abilities of dogs, amplified by the bark resonance, can be applied to everything from healing emotional trauma to detecting impending natural disasters." The hologram changed again, this time showing the construction of massive space stations in Earth's orbit. These stations, built in collaboration with the Zarkai, were designed to act as early warning systems against any future cosmic threats. But perhaps most excitingly, Sarah said, her voice rising with enthusiasm, we're preparing to take our first steps into the stars, not as conquerors or mere explorers, but as partners with both our canine companions and our new alien friends. The final hologram showed an artist's rendition of a sleek spaceship, its design a harmonious blend of human, Zarkai, and canine considerations. This vessel, the first of its kind, was being prepared for a mission to the edge of our solar system, with a crew composed of humans, dogs, and Zarkai working in perfect symbiosis. As Sarah concluded her speech to thunderous applause, she felt a mixture of pride and apprehension. The future that lay before them was bright with promise, but not without its challenges. Later that evening, as Sarah and Max walked through Central Park, enjoying a rare moment of peace, they were joined by Zalfar. The Zarkai leader had become a close friend and valued advisor in the post-void world. Your words were inspiring, Sarah Chen, Zalfar said, his melodious voice filled with warmth. You have a gift for bridging the gap between species. Sarah smiled, reaching down to scratch behind Max's ears. I've had a good teacher, she said, nodding towards her canine companion. They walked in companionable silence for a while, the park around them alive with the sounds of humans and dogs enjoying the evening together. The world had changed in many ways, but some things, like the simple joy of a walk in the park, remained beautifully constant. There is something I wish to discuss with you, Zalfar said at last, his tone becoming more serious. It concerns the upcoming mission to the outer solar system. Sarah felt a flutter of anticipation in her stomach. She had been following the mission preparations closely, even entertaining secret hopes of being involved somehow. What about it? She asked, trying to keep her voice neutral. The council has been discussing the composition of the crew, Zalfar explained. We believe it is crucial to have someone aboard who truly understands the bond between humans and canines, someone who has experienced firsthand the power of that connection in the face of cosmic threats. Sarah's heart began to race as she realized where this was going. Are you saying? Zalfar's skin rippled in what Sarah had come to recognize as the Zarkai equivalent of a smile. We would like you and Max to join the mission, Sarah. Your expertise and your bond could be invaluable as we venture into the unknown. For a moment, Sarah was speechless. The opportunity was beyond anything she had ever dreamed of. But it was also terrifying. Going into space, facing the unknown dangers that lurked in the cosmic depths, it was a far cry from her old life as a small-town vet. As if sensing her internal struggle, Max let out a soft whine, pressing his body against her leg. Sarah looked down at him, seeing the trust and excitement in his eyes. In that moment, she knew her answer. We'd be honored, she said, her voice firm with resolve. When do we start training? The next few months were a whirlwind of preparation. Sarah and Max underwent rigorous physical and mental conditioning, learning to operate in zero-gravity environments and mastering the complex systems of the new spaceship. They worked closely with their human and Zarkai crewmates, forging the kind of deep bonds that would be essential for the success of their mission. Throughout it all, Sarah was constantly amazed by Max's adaptability and intelligence. The enhanced connection they now shared allowed for a level of communication and cooperation that went beyond anything she had thought possible. Max wasn't just her companion anymore. He was her partner in every sense of the word. Finally, the day of launch arrived. As Sarah stood at the base of the gleaming spaceship, Max by her side, she felt a profound sense of awe and responsibility. They were about to embark on a journey that would take them further from Earth than any human or dog had ever gone before. Are you ready for this, boy? She asked, looking down at Max. In response, Max let out a confident bark, his tail wagging with excitement. Sarah laughed, feeling her nervousness melt away. Whatever lay ahead, they would face it together. As they boarded the ship and took their positions for launch, Sarah's mind wandered back to that fateful day in Millbrook when the Zarkai first arrived. How far they had come since then, how much they had learned and grown. The universe had proven to be a far stranger and more wondrous place than anyone had imagined, full of both terrors and marvels beyond comprehension. But through it all, one thing had remained constant: the unbreakable bond between a human and her dog. It was that bond that had saved the world, and it was that bond that would now carry them into the stars. As the countdown began, and the engines roared to life, Sarah reached out to place her hand on Max's head. She felt the familiar surge of connection, the warmth and love that flowed between them, stronger now than ever before. "Let's go see what's out there, Max," she whispered. With a tremendous surge of power, the ship lifted off, carrying its crew of humans, dogs, and aliens into the vast unknown. As Earth fell away beneath them, growing smaller and smaller until it was just a blue marble suspended in the blackness of space, Sarah felt a profound sense of peace and purpose. Whatever challenges lay ahead, whatever new wonders or dangers they might encounter, she knew that as long as she had Max by her side, there was nothing they couldn't handle. They were more than just companions now. They were partners, explorers, and guardians of a bond that had proven strong enough to save the universe. As the ship accelerated towards the outer reaches of the solar system, Sarah looked out at the star-strewn vastness before them. The future was uncertain, full of both promise and peril. But with Max's steady presence beside her and the combined strength of humanity, canines, and their new alien friends, she felt ready to face whatever the cosmos might throw their way. The adventure that had begun with a simple walk in a small-town park was now taking them to the very edges of known space, and as they journeyed forth into the great unknown, Sarah couldn't help but smile at the thought that, in the end, it was the love between a human and her dog that had not only saved the world, but was now leading them into a future brighter than anyone could have imagined. The stars beckoned, and together they answered the call, one human, one dog, embarking on the greatest adventure of all.